Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is Monday morning. It is a fresh week off the back of a win, and what a win it was. I mean, obviously we didn't play well, we didn't play the best that we've ever played. It was still quite a poor performance, but Man United managed to get the 3 points and that's all that mattered. I got to watch Match of the Day. I got to enjoy Arsenal City yesterday without, worrying about Manchester United losing another game. And obviously we're still on the back foot, but it was nice just to get a win and a lovely weekend. And I hope you all had a good weekend as well. We're going into the international break, and of course the news is already starting to come out. We knew this. International break, sale stuff, Sancho stuff, it is rife at the moment, and there actually is some really interesting stuff coming out. Going to get really into the sale. Qatar want all of this. They don't want minority states, they don't want anything. They want 100%, they want to do the deal, but they are not willing to budge on the price. The Glazers are holding out for the most money that they can get. The parasites that they are, they just keep digging each pound out, each dollar out that they can get, and they will keep going until they can somehow manage to try and get Qatar to up their bid. We're going to talk about how that's going to work and over the course of the period of time that it's going to take as well, because this has been going on for a very, very long time. Also, Sancho doesn't want to go to Dortmund. He wants to go to Juventus, and they are willing to take him on loan in January and then potentially pay quite a decent fee to secure him permanently. That's coming out as well. Also going to discuss the injuries that are coming back after the international break, what our strongest team is going to be, and where Man United are heading this season, because, I mean, there's only 8 points between the top 10 at the moment, and realistically, considering the awful start that we've had and the fixtures that we've had, obviously we're nowhere near good enough, but it's not absolutely horrendous. Like, we've been horrendous, but the league table isn't horrendous. And we're going to discuss where we can kind of get to on that. And the only thing I would say, the top 8 teams are all better than us right now. But we're going to get discussing it in the chat. So everyone get your comments in. Welcome to the show. Straight off the bat, before we get into any news, I just want you guys to tell me, where do you think Man United will finish at the end of this season? I just want a place. I want a place in the table where you think they'll finish. I would be really interested to know. Looking at the table, looking at our form, if you had to say now, you were betting, I don't know, £1,000 on it. You could win £1,000 if you got it exactly right. What place would you say? I want to hear everybody's answers coming in now. And we'll get onto it. But welcome everyone, welcome to the show. I'm already seeing a lot of 6 coming in. A few people are still trusting us to get top 4. Wow, you guys have the faith. Don't say that the United fans aren't loyal. And obviously there's so many mixes of answers, but the league table isn't actually that bad. But I want to get into the show straight away. I want to talk about the sale news, because we are going to lead off this. And this sale, it just feels like it keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And honestly, has anyone seen that clip at the start of the Titanic where it's like, it's been 84 years? That is how this sale feels, and it does feel like the same information coming out over and over again, slightly different wording, but this is kind of a good update at this point in the sale process. But it is so frustrating kind of going over old ground, because my interpretation is we are literally at deadlock now, and I'm going to tell you what my opinions are on this after I've read out the news that is actually coming out on this, and I'll get round to what everybody's saying in the chat as well. So, Ben Jacobs has said, Sheikh Jassim is still committed to a full buyout of Manchester United. We know this, which means 100% of the club, including the Glazers' share. He will not budge on that. It's an all or nothing bid. There is no scenario where the 9-2 Foundation and Sheikh Jassim would entertain staying on course for Manchester United if the Glazers did want to stay. They don't want any scenario where there's a minority investor where the Glazers remain. They don't want any scenario where they don't want 100% of the club. Sorry, where they don't have 100% of the club. And that, again, this is why I 100% am backing this Qatar bid. And for me, it's the only option that we can go forward with. Everyone else can have their own opinions. But I genuinely don't understand how, you can be a Man United fan and want anything else but a full sale, no matter who it is. It could be literally prime David Beckham himself saying, no, I want to take over this club. But if it means the Glazers staying, I'm not having it. Like, I'm genuinely not having it. 100% has to be the way. And that's the only thing I can get behind. And Qatar is the only party that is offering that right now. And the fact that they're still 100% or nothing, they are not getting fazed by these Sir Jim Ratcliffe minority bids. They're not getting fazed by anything else around them. And what I would say on this is that we'll talk about Sir Jim's bid and how that could affect this in a second. But why would the Glazers still be at this point where they've not made any decisions if they wanted to take a minority stake? They would have just taken a minority stake. Sir Jim has changed his offers more times than I can count. Seriously, it feels like there's a different offer every month for Sir Jim. I mean, there's other minority investments that are not so prominent. I spoke to Ben Jacobs about this. You know, you've got the Carlisle Group, you've got the Elliott Group. They've got people that are willing to prop up the Glazers and invest some money into this club to get a return eventually and just basically plunge the club into more and more debt. There is people there willing to do that. The Glazers haven't opted to do that. If they wanted to keep hold of the club, surely they would try and figure out a solution for a minority stakeholder, and that wouldn't be as complicated. For me, they are playing the long game here. We already know it is very well renowned within the business world, within the footballing world, that the Glazers take an age to make a decision. I've spoke about this so many times on the show. That's why our signings take so long, because every single Glazer sibling has to give it the thumbs up and give it the okay, and it takes ages. They deliberate for such a long time. They are famously slow decision makers. We've had that on the show from Ben Jacobs. We've had it said. I honestly think for them, they will play the long game as long as it takes. If it means even getting, you know, another, I don't know what price out of Qatar and the investment that they're willing to, well, the money that they're willing to pay for Manchester United. They will wait however long it takes just to get an extra dollar here, a dollar there. That's what they want. They want the most money that they can possibly get, and they will push till the end. It's like Qatar and the Glazers right now. It's like, who's going to blink first? That's what it feels like. Qatar thinks that the Glazers will accept their offer eventually, so they are willing to wait it out. They are not fazed by the minority investment or Sir Jim because they want a full sale anyway. They're not willing to deliberate on that. And they've got the money. Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation have got the money. Have got the money to be like, you know what, we'll just up it another billion. They are multi-billionaires, but they're not doing it based on principle, and they shouldn't do it because Man United aren't worth it. They're already paying over the odds. I mean, I want them to do it just so this hurries up and goes quicker. I think everybody would want that, but they're not out of principle. They're businessmen, very, very intelligent businessmen. It's understandable. And the Glazers know the money that Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Foundation have. They know that they could go up an extra billion if they wanted to, an extra 500 million. They know that. It's not going to happen, but they know that is possible. So the Glazers are waiting and waiting and waiting, trying every single tactic they can to hope and pray that they get a little bit more money out of this. And that's how they are. That's how they've always been. They bought the club on debt. They're going to make billions out of Manchester United. They've not invested any money into it. They've taken dividends over the years. As a business deal for them, it's been absolutely unreal. For Manchester United fans, it's been the darkest days. Like, it's been horrendous. But for them as a business deal, it's been unreal. They don't care if they have to wait another year, another 2 years, if they get an extra 500 million. Like, they would absolutely, like, they would eat that up. They want as much money as possible. They don't care about us. They don't care how long it takes. They don't care how much the club is running to the ground. You can tell that from the state that we're in. The only thing they're going to care about if it hits them in their pockets. And that's the only thing I could think is maybe falling out of Europe might affect them in that sense. But I do think it will be Qatar. I do think it will be a full sale. I just think it's going to be a very, very long waiting game. Carol J, a member for 18 months. I have this awful feeling that even if Qatar bid 6 billion, the Glazers would want more. I mean, it's like, do you know on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Veruca Salt, like, the most spoiled child ever, and all they want is more and more and more because nothing's ever enough. They just want more. They want more of what they can get. It doesn't matter to anybody else. That is the Glazers right now. That is the Glazers. That's how they've always been. Like, I don't know why anybody would expect otherwise. At first, I had hope. Now, every single day when I see the sale updates, when I see the news coming out, I just think to myself, one day. And I don't know when that day could be. We could be sat here this time next year in the same situation. I hope and pray it is before summer next year. That's all I want. Before summer next year. There was talks about it being before January. There's absolutely not a chance that's going to happen. I would like to see things get moving before summer next year. I want new owners in before the summer transfer window. But even that, if you had to say now, Beth, you know, £1 million if you get this right, will the Glazers still be owners of Manchester United on the first day of the transfer window in the summer 2025? Oh no, 2024, we're in 2023, don't know what I'm about. So if you had to say, Beth, you get £1 million, if you get this right, will the Glazers still be the owners of Manchester United on the first day of the summer transfer window 2024? I would say to you, yes, I think they will be. I think they will be. Because that's where I'm led to believe. I do think this will eventually happen, but I don't think Qatar's in a rush, and they don't want to be taken for a ride, and they won't be taken for a ride. And the Glazers aren't in a rush either. They will wait it out to get as much money as they possibly can, no matter what happens to this club. And that's the sad state of affairs that we're in right now. But it will happen eventually, I hope, and that's my opinion. But you can get yours in down below. Conrado 9000, we are lost and directionless, celebrating a last-minute Brentford win like we're back with the top dogs. Qatar's buyout won't bring us back on top for another 2 to 3 years. What are your thoughts? Well, yeah, it's going to be a long waiting game. I think people expect stuff now, and they expect stuff immediately. I mean, just to kind of bring in Erik ten Hag onto this, I think Erik ten Hag overachieved last year, and that's why people were expecting a lot more this year. Teams around us weren't as good. We had some really good results. He did very well considering the team he had. I think he did overachieve. This year, me, myself included, I had some sort of hope and delusion that we were going to compete, at least for second spot with Arsenal, and we're going to be in and amongst it. That is not going to happen, and it's not happened. We've been so far off that, and we will not be at that point this season. It won't happen. It just won't. We're not nowhere near that stage. You can see the cracks started to show that we've papered over, and you can see the holes that are in this team, and you can see the horrible ownership from above kind of filtering down to the rest of the club. You can see that. You can see we're nowhere near at the top level from top to bottom. We're really, really not. But like you said, things take time. You have to start somewhere. And Qatar buying out Manchester United and being complete owners of this club will make a huge, huge difference. It will propel us more than anything's propelled us in the last 20 years. It honestly will. And yes, it won't happen straight away. We won't win the title the following season. I doubt. I highly, highly doubt. Never say never. But it will still take time. But the time from what it would take under the Glazers to Qatar would go from out here, infinite, because I don't ever see us winning anything under the Glazers, to here. And that's still a long way to go, but it will be possible. And things will change immediately. The funding will go into the stadium. There'll be a massive uplift in and around the ground. Staff will be completely wiped out, and the best in class will be brought in. Obviously, the good people will stay. But the best in class for the medical department, you know, every department you can think of, the best in class will be brought in. The manager will get absolute full backing. The club will be ran like a top club should be ran. I really hope Erik ten Hag's here when that happens, because I think that'd be the best way to deal with this. I think Erik ten Hag needs Qatar behind him as an ownership. But just look at I was watching the Newcastle PSG game, and I'm going off on a tangent here. But in the Newcastle PSG game, where Newcastle thrashed PSG 4-1 at St James's Park. First year back in the Champions League after how many years? Under Mike Ashley and under that ownership, they were decrepit. They were in a relegation battle. The mood was horrendous. Steve Bruce was manager, and bless Steve Bruce for everything he did for Man United. But he was nowhere near like any form of a good enough manager to, for me, manage really any team in the Premier League at that stage in his career. And the new ownership came in, whether you agree with that style of ownership or not, that's a different debate to be had. But the new ownership came in, the takeover happened, and there was an absolute surge of excitement in the fans. There was a surge of winning mentality inserted into the team. There was this surge of positivity. They got Eddie Howe in, and I think Eddie Howe has done a brilliant job. They've spent money, by the way. If you look, they have spent money. They've not spent it on huge flashy names, but they've spent money. They've invested into the squad. They've backed the manager, and just the uplift that it gave them. And Sean Longstaff was doing an interview on TNT Sports, and I was watching it after the game. I was thinking, I don't really like Newcastle, to be honest, because they've had a massive problem with us for the last couple of years. For some reason, they now think they're our competitors, understandably, because they're actually better than us right now. And, you know, everything with the Carabao Cup, the pictures of after winning against us at St James's Park, they've just really riled me up a little bit over the last 2 years. They really have. But I can't take away from them that I was sat there after that Champions League game thinking, I wish Man United would put a performance together like that. I wish we would play as a team the way that Newcastle plays a team. I wish we were as organised as that. I wish we had ownership that cared about the club that much. I wish we had ownership that was willing to do anything to back the manager and create a winning team. I wish that squad had that positivity and that togetherness. I just wish that we could be more like them. And that's really sad that as a Man United fan, I sat there thinking that. And I saw Sean Longstaff do an interview. And don't get it twisted. If Man United fans said, you know, you're going to have Almiron, Sean Longstaff, Dan Burn, Fabian Schär, you know, all put into your team next year, you'd be like, absolutely not. They're nowhere near United quality. There are all the goal scorers on that pitch against PSG. But Sean Longstaff did that interview, and I remember the words coming out of his mouth, and I thought, that is it. He said, everything changed for this club after the takeover. Everything changed after the takeover. And that's how much new ownership can do. And think about how much we're being suffocated under the Glazers. It's like, I mean, I'm going to use an analogy, and it's not a very nice one, but it's like you're stood on, like, I don't know, say you're stood on like a worm or something really lightly, but you don't even realise that you stood on it. And then you just kind of keep pressing down and down and down. You just keep suffocating them. That's what this club feels like is happening with this Glazer ownership. And the new ownership, I can't even tell you how much it would lift this club, and that's why I don't think sacking another manager is a solution. I want to wait for Qatar to come in to at least give Erik ten Hag that chance. And Erik ten Hag is the man for me. The amount of stuff he's had to deal with. And to succeed under this ownership is near enough impossible, I think, genuinely at this point in time. So I want to give Erik ten Hag the time he needs, and I just hope this happens sooner rather than later. Honestly, please, Qatar, just up your offer if you have to. I don't think they should have to, and I don't blame them for not. But I would absolutely the day that the takeover happens, if it happens, would be one of the best days of my life, genuinely, and I think it would be for all of you as well. Anyway, went off on a bit of one there as well. Went off on one a bit. I want to kind of look at your comments in the chat as well with this one. So AK says, Ange at Spurs have a style of play in 6 months with supposed worst players. I want to talk on this one as well. Ange has done a brilliant job at Spurs. Obviously, we're only a couple months into the season, so you don't want to go like too over the top with it, but he's done a brilliant job so far. I'm not taking that away from him. And yeah, their owners aren't great either. There's nothing compared to the Glazers, but their owners aren't great. But Ange has done a good job since coming in. But I will say something that the reason, and I'm not putting it all down to this, but the reason why it looks like Ange is doing a very good job, which he is, but the difference between Erik ten Hag and Ange and the situations they've had to deal with, I'll name a couple. Starting off, there is nowhere near the same expectation that there is at Spurs than that there is at Man United. I don't care what anyone says. There's just nowhere near. So the pressure is nowhere near as high. That's not an excuse, but it's true. But this is the main point I want to go into. Ange Postecoglou is not playing any European football. He's also out of the Carabao Cup. They have 1 game a week to prepare for. Erik ten Hag, since he stepped through the door at Manchester United, we played the most amount of games, I think, in the Premier League last year, correct me if I'm wrong, or one of the most amount of games in Europe. We had the Europa League, we're in the Carabao Cup till the final and won it, we're in the FA Cup till the final. So we rarely had any time on the training ground at all last year. We're in everything. We're in all the competitions, trying to win them all. This year, again, we've got Champions League. We're not doing great. We'll probably get knocked out pretty soon, to be fair. And hopefully, God, not into the Europa League. Can't deal with that. But we've got European football. We're in the Carabao Cup. We're in the FA Cup. You expect to stay in the competitions for quite a while. Erik ten Hag has not had a full week of training during the season since he began at Manchester United. Apart from, obviously, the international breaks. But then the players go away anyway. So to play 1 game a week compared to 2 a week is honestly such a drastic difference. So Ange has that time on the training ground from the game that he played at the weekend all the way to the next week, and that is so valuable. You can instill your principles, you can implement the methods that you want to go with your squad on the training ground. And I was thinking about that the other day. Everyone's giving Erik ten Hag such stick. Ange just come in and done this for Spurs. Ange just come in and done that. Ten Hag's not done this. Ten Hag's not done that. And you are absolutely correct in the fact that Ange has done a great job with Spurs. I really like him. He seems like a lovely guy. But you've got to take into consideration the circumstances that both managers are under. And that's in a way, and I don't think Man United should ever have to do this, but in a way, I did think to myself, you know, if we did drop out of Europe altogether next year, which I don't want to happen because, you know, we're Man United, we should be in the Champions League. But if we dropped out of Europe altogether, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the sense of this manager would actually have time in the training ground to properly get into these players and rebuild this team. Arteta had it with Arsenal when they were completely out of Europe. You know, sometimes it does make a huge difference. I'm not saying we should have to do that, but it is a big difference that can affect managers. Ladio says new ownership means Ten Hag is gone. I don't think it does. I really don't think it does. I really don't. And Guess Who says we aren't asking to win every game, we're just asking for a style of play. Yeah, exactly. That is something that I really do want to see, because that's one thing that Ten Hag needs to give me. He needs to give me a style. I back him all the way, but I need to start seeing a style. Rad Jones says Ten Hag should have implemented his system in the first season. Yeah, I know he can. I think he attempted that. He started with that, but then he needs to get points on the board, and we reverted back to basically just trying to see out games and win out games. We built our season on a strong defence, which is obviously a strong defence is nice, but we didn't play Erik Ten Hag ball for the majority of that season, all of our season nearly. We tried it. I feel like at Brighton and Brentford, it just didn't work. He's tried it again this year. The first couple of games of the season when he had his full squad, it's not really working. But I really want it to work, and I want to see him succeed, and I think he can succeed. And the fans back Erik Ten Hag and Qatar to buy United, says Johnny M. And Chunks said, I think Erik would love to have more time with his squad, but he's hell-bent on winning everything. And that's exactly what you want to be as a manager. Like, I love the fact Erik Ten Hag won't give up the Carabao Cup. I love the fact he won't give up the FA Cup. He wants to win every competition, and that's exactly what your mentality should be at Manchester United. But I do think more time on the training ground would massively help us out. But I want to just kind of also get on to the last little bit about Qatar before I move on to Sancho. Kind of had a big old rant this morning, but it was very much needed. I am actually feeling positive, to be fair, going into this week. It's just the fact we don't have to see Man United play again, and I love Man United to bits. I love going to Old Trafford, but it has been a hard watch as of late, hasn't it? Let's be real, guys. And I'm hoping after the international break we'll have players back from injury and it'll be a little bit better. Sheffield United away. God, we've got to win. If we don't win that, holy hell. Holy hell. Michael Neal says, out of Europe for a season would help. Step back to go forward. We are where we are. Repeatedly saying, but we are Man United. Doesn't get us anywhere. Exactly, Michael. I mean, I've had discussions about this. I had discussions with a City fan that gives me... He gives me it literally every week. I text messages as soon as a goal goes in. Galatasaray scored. Here they go. I can see him typing. You know, when you can see it, he gives me every week. I did just message him saying 3 on the bounce about losses, because obviously they lost to, I don't know if it was on the bounce, so I messaged him saying 3. It's 3 losses, because that's a lot for City. It was Wolves, wasn't it? It was Newcastle, and it was Arsenal they've just lost to. Obviously, City are way better than us, so I'm just literally having a bit of banter there. Like, it's hard to even banter them because of how much better than us that they actually are, even though they've lost 3 games. But I was saying, you know what, if we get Champions League, obviously I want to get Champions League football. Every single season I want Champions League football. I don't see that as attainable right now. I don't know how we're going to get it. I just see the teams above us way, way better, especially the top 4 teams. But I said I would rather go out of Europe next season than be in the Europa League. And he was like, no, you can't think like that. Man United at least need a trophy. It's an opportunity for a trophy, the Europa League. And United should be at least trying to get a trophy. And I was like, honestly, I'd rather Erik Ten Hag just have the time on the training ground to get into these players and rebuild this team and implement his system. I think it would better us for the long term. He massively disagreed with me, but I wanted to kind of see the conversation on this. And it's really sad that we're having this conversation, how the standards have fallen, how the mighty have fallen. Get the comments in, that's where we're at. But I just wanted to have these conversations. So if we can get a poll in the chat, what would you rather do? Be in the Europa League or be out of Europe altogether and give Ten Hag a full week to work with these players? I'd kind of be really interested to see what people think. So if you can get a poll on that, really would appreciate it. Anybody else talking? Stick says, excuses, what about pre-season, the previous season? Andy's clearly a good man manager as well. It seems like there is so much drama with Erik Ten Hag around certain players. Well, yeah, we have egos. We're Man United when we pay talented players that aren't good enough. Too much money. We overpay, we overhype, and we underdeliver. That's what we've done for a long time. So Erik Ten Hag has had a lot to deal with off the pitch, but a lot of that is down to what Man United have done and how the standards have slipped. We've got the wrong people in. We've not recruited well. We've not checked characteristics. We've not done background checks. And we've put it in a really difficult situation that Erik Ten Hag is having to kind of deal with each problem one by one. There will be an end goal in this. There will be an end game. I feel like once Sancho leaves in January, which we're going to get onto in a second, and you know all the bad eggs are kind of weaned out of this squad, Erik ten Hag will really start to try and take this team forward. And I don't think Ronaldo was a bad egg by any stretch, by the way. And I don't think De Gea was a bad egg. I really don't. Like, obviously there's been problems with different players, but Ronaldo, it just wasn't compatible at that time. And I really don't like how that ended, because I love Ronaldo as a player. He's obviously a GOAT of the game, and he was brilliant for Man United, and I'll always love him. But I don't think he was a bad egg. Like, he had that issue with Erik ten Hag. He came out and apologised. Ten Hag literally made him captain the next game. Ten Hag's very, like, he'll respond, even if he doesn't think, even if he doesn't like what you've done. If you give him that apology, you give him that respect, which Ronaldo did. He was respectful, and he admitted he'd done wrong. He put out a statement, different to what Sancho has done. Obviously, Ronaldo is the complete professional. Completely love Ronaldo, and obviously that ended badly, and that's sad. But it wasn't the right time for him to beat United, I don't think, at that point. De Gea, obviously, the way that ended was really sad as well, and it should have ended differently, but Ten Hag didn't want to go with that style. He was coming to the end of his contract. It just made sense. But with the Sancho situation, that is a player, again, that's been overpaid, overhyped, and just hasn't been good enough, and obviously has the wrong attitude. And you look at, I know people hate me for this, because I know there's so many Pogba fans, but it's like Pogba. We shouldn't have brought him back. He doesn't have the right attitude to play for Man United. He doesn't. People say, oh, he's won a World Cup, Beth, and he was brilliant in that World Cup. Of course he has. I'm talking about for Man United. He's done the wrong things off the pitch. He was flying out to Miami and Dubai when he should have been at Carrington. And the fact all he let that happen was ridiculous. He was slagging Man United off in every international break. Stuff was coming out before that Leipzig game, that really important Leipzig game in the Champions League, or I can't remember who it was against, and Ollie benched him. It just was constant just negativity surrounding Pogba. We've not brought in the right characters for a long time. Alexis Sanchez was another one. Di Maria was another one. Like, you could go on and on and on. And I was watching the David Beckham documentary, and I was thinking, the way Sir Alex Ferguson used to vet players, the way he'd say, are you in a relationship? How long have you been together? What's this happening with this? What's happening with that? Because he wanted to know everything about the player. Because that's so important. Man United have just completely fell off from that. I actually do think Ten Hag has recruited the right characters. Whether they're good enough on the pitch is a different story that we can argue all day. But I think he's recruited the right characters since he's come in. I think he's very kind of hell-bent on that. But he's had a lot to sort out. It was an absolute mess when Erik ten Hag walked through that door. There's still messes to clean up, but we are slowly but surely getting there. And in a rebuild, results are going to drop. Results are going to slip. And there's no excuse for how we've been this season. It's been terrible. But I do kind of want to stick by this manager and see it all the way through. Anyway, get in the comment on the poll what you guys think. I'm going to say have a year out. See what you... 69%. That's more than what I thought. Say have a year out. Maybe I'm onto something with that as well, with that one. Have I seen any kind of comments on coming in? Marquito says, I suspect the real problem is the contracts and the terms that we offer the bigger players, forcing Erik ten Hag to give players minutes with bad tactics. And Michael Neal says, we never get the new players in for a proper season. Sorry, for the proper pre-season. The pre-season team is never the same. Exactly. And people talk about pre-season. Erik ten Hag should have done better in pre-season. Our pre-seasons are terrible, and they have been for so long. The club prioritises making money. I love America. I really, really do. And I think it's great that fans internationally get to go and see Man United play. But having a game in Texas and then San Diego within the space of 24 hours is just ridiculous. I know it's not the same team, but travelling-wise, it's ridiculous. The travelling from state to country that these players have to go through. The fact that most of our players aren't even through the door because we don't do business till the end of the summer. We always look unfit coming into the season. We always look like we've not got our heads together. It's always so all over the place and disjointed. And I think it's because Man United prioritise money over actually a proper pre-season. And that's been the case for quite a while now. I'm all for, doing the pre-season in amazing countries like, or different continents like Asia, North America. Like, honestly, that should happen. International fans should get to see Man United play. I'm all for that. But organise the games in a way that helps the team, benefits the team, because that is possible. El Nasser 99, member for 18 months. I don't get why we are Glazers out all summer and then blame Ten Hag when we ain't pulling up trees during the season. People have short memories. Thank you for that chat as well. And I just wanted to quickly finish up on this before I talk about Sancho. Obviously, we all know that was coming out a little bit ago. Mark did a show on this, that Sir Jim was actively exploring the option of lodging a bid for 25% stake in Man United. He still wants to eventually have overall control, but he's considering a range of different options to entice the Glazer family to sell their shares. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe from Mike Keegan was considering ditching his bid to take over Man United, favouring buying a minority stake, which would leave the Glazer family in control of the club. And yeah, sources close to the Qatari group say that the news of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's restructured bid amounts to another pressure tactic designed to make them increase their own bid. And they reiterate that the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid does not influence them. As one insider puts it, the two bids are like apples and pears. So again, just to reiterate the point, it's all or nothing for Qatar. I think they might have to improve their bid if they want this to hurry up. I don't think the Glazers are going to turn around and take Sir Jim Ratcliffe's offer. I feel like they would have done it by now. Sir Jim just wants anything he can get his hands on at this point. It reeks of desperation. It's either desperation or a tactic to try and get Sir Jim to up his bid. Some sort of tactic that's kind of going on inside. But I think he's just trying to get anything he can out of desperation. And I think if the Glazers wanted to stay in control, they would have taken his offer. They've not. This is going to be a standoff for a while. Get your guesses in down below when you think the takeover will happen. This is just my opinion, obviously. I bring the news and then give you my opinion, but that's where I'm at the moment. Williams.dr says, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. Glazers are using Sir Jim to up the Qatar bid. That could be happening. There's two options right now in my head logically. They are using them to up the Qatar bid, or he's generally just trying to get anything he can get because Man United, is obviously a good opportunity in business. Either one, you are not a United fan. No disrespect to Sir Jim. You are not a United fan. You would not offer that minority stake if you were. You just wouldn't. And you wouldn't be doing the tactics with the Glazers. Although maybe that is actually pretty good tactic, to be fair, if it means Qatar will actually end up buying the club. But no, it isn't a good tactic, because if you just walked away, they'd have no leg to stand on to negotiate with Qatar. Qatar would be the only ones left. So either or, I just can't buy into the whole, I'm a United fan. You're not, because a United fan wouldn't act like that. But anyway, let's move on to Sancho, because I feel like it's just a huge kind of thing that's kind of taken us into the season, and it's going to be made a big deal out of all the way through the international break. It happens every single time. Just needed some water there. I was getting a little bit dehydrated. But coming in from the Sun late last night, Juventus wants to sign Jadon Sancho on loan in January, with a view of turning it into a permanent deal for £60 million next summer. Honestly, £60 million for Sancho in the summer on the table now. Thank you very much. I will shake your hand. Absolutely no question in my mind. I don't believe it, because I think it's too good to be true. £60 million for Sancho after everything. He's not done anything for 3 years. He's got a terrible attitude, and you know what? Go off and have a great career. I wish him nothing but the best. But 60 mil for Jadon Sancho, I would take that and run a mile. Order the Uber now. It's on the United Stand. Seriously, I would take that and run. So if that is actually true, would love it. Would absolutely love it. But I can't see Juventus offering 60 million, I'm going to be honest. But if they are, then fair enough. It's his wages as well. It's a huge thing. He's on 350 grand a week. Unless Jadon Sancho wants to cut his wages down, that's going to be a tough deal to negotiate. But on loan in January, absolutely. Hopefully he does well, because then they'd want to actually end up buying him. The Juventus are willing to pay half of Jadon Sancho's wages if he joins them on loan. Shock horror, we'd have to pay the other half because we massively overpay players. Jadon Sancho was an extremely talented 21-year-old when he came into Man United, 20-year-old, I think. I wanted it to work. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I've said it so many times. I think he's talented enough. I just think he's not got it up here. But there was no reason why we pay him 350 grand a week. What other team was offering that? What other team was going to Jadon Sancho being like, yeah, we'll pay 72 million for you and we'll give you 350 grand a week? Like, we could have offered 200 grand a week and I think he still would have came. And that's still a lot of money. So that was ridiculous, like that, the fact that we even gave him that wage, but that's another story. But again, it's coming out from the Sun that Sancho doesn't want to return to Borussia Dortmund. He'd much rather rebuild his career at Juventus. Again, obviously, I think it's a better move for him to go somewhere else instead of going back in time. Juventus, I think, the Italian league is a little bit slower. I think he'd probably thrive there quite well. Obviously, gives him a fresh start, which is exactly what he needs. He's not going to succeed at Man United. If anyone's still got hopes for that, then again, credit to you for still having the hope. But I knew as soon as that thing came out on social media and he didn't apologise to Erik ten Hag that his time was over at Manchester United. It's over. Like, he's not going to come back from it. But yeah, I mean, there's not really much else I can say apart from if the Sun seriously reporting, and you know, with the Sun, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, and this is why I'm not getting carried away. If it was like, you know, Fabrizio Romano, I'd be literally getting the balloons out from Tesco, party poppers out, banners up in the studio. I'd be having a party right now. Seriously, £60 million for Jadon Sancho. Like, I would be all over that. It's the Sun, so I'm just taking it like, take it or leave it kind of thing. We're going to report on it, obviously, because it's news. But we'll have to wait and see how this materialises. But seriously, if we can get 60 million for Jadon Sancho, that'd be a great deal. Brilliant deal. I'd take 40 right now. I would. And I think United would as well. And Jadon Sancho on loan, that's the thing, he's got to do well on loan for even to get close to offering that figure. Hopefully he does, so then they can buy him. And then the wages thing is just an issue that I don't know how we'd get over that stumbling block. But hopefully Jadon Sancho, because he's that adamant to leave and he doesn't want to back down, he doesn't want to apologise, he wants to leave Man United. It's been widely reported that he wants to leave. Hopefully he can come to some sort of agreement and then we can kind of just part ways and move on. Interesting question for you guys that I want to ask you is, if Jadon Sancho does leave, which I think he will, I think it's just a matter of time, who would you get in to replace him? I've heard a lot of talk about Elise at Crystal Palace. Obviously, he's been injured, but 11 assists in the Premier League last year. I think he's got a 60 million release clause. Very, very talented player, Premier League proven. I've heard a lot about Pedro Neto for Wolves. For me, on his day, is absolutely unbelievable. Tears it up. Premier League proven again. Concerns over injuries and the consistency with him, but again, he's super, super young. Who would you go for as a winger to kind of come in and replace Jadon Sancho? Because we'd need to replace that profile. Luke82 says the Glazers look like the drought from Skyrim. I don't know what that is. I really don't know what that is, if I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe I'm being stupid. The polls ended. Have a year out of Europe or play in the Europa League. 68% say have a year out of Europe, with 31% saying play in the Europa League. Interesting stuff. About 2,000 votes on that one as well. So, you know, the majority are going with me on that one. Let me go through some of your comments. And people talking about bringing Greenwood back. I'm not going to lie, I saw some highlights of him from the game against Qatar yesterday. Not that I would want him back at all anyway, because I don't. I've made my stance clear on that. He doesn't look anywhere near as good as he was, which is obvious. He's been out of football for quite a while. I know he scored, but I don't really want to talk about Greenwood because he's not a United player and I don't want him back. KC says Pedro Neto or Nico Williams. Obviously, Nico Williams has been someone that's been talked about quite a lot. Again, for me, with Nico Williams, it's like, it could go one way or another. It could go one way or another. Obviously plays for Atletico Bilbao and such a young talent. I don't know how old he is, actually. I'm going to have a look. I think he's around 20. Let me have a look. Nico Williams. He's 21 years old. He's got so much talent. I do like him. I've not seen absolutely loads of him because, again, I don't watch Atletico Bilbao every week. Sorry, guys, you can't be there. I don't. I've seen a lot of highlights of him. I've seen people I trust within the European network have said how good he can be. But, again, it's a massive risk to getting a player like that. You buy a player like Elise on Neto, you do know what you're getting. You know what you're going for. You know what's going to come to you because it's the Premier League proven thing again. And there's a reason why, you know, Arteta and Pep Guardiola have shopped in the Premier League quite a lot over the course of their career because you know what you're going to get. That doesn't mean I don't think we should go for foreign international players. Of course we do. We got Højlund in and he's looking like a treat right now. And, you know, players have worked out before, but it's like we bought Anthony from Ajax abroad, 90 million. That's not really looking like 90 million's worth of player, is it? Really like Anthony. I think he's got a lot of potential. But you are having a risk when making a risk when you're buying a player from a different league. I mean, look at Sancho. Like, he came in, was the most goal contributions in Europe at 20 years old, and he just completely fell off a cliff and flopped, didn't he? I mean, that is the case. But then again, you look at Matoma for Brighton. I don't even know where Matoma came from, but how unbelievable is it? So you can get a hit or you can get a miss. All I'm saying is it is a little bit riskier to go abroad. Matoma would be an unbelievable signing. I'd love to get him in. How old is Matoma? And I know he's not a right winger before you start talking. I wouldn't mind seeing Rashford on the right, to be honest with you. Matoma's only 26. How much money do you think he'd be worth? Wow, unbelievable. Matoma would probably be around 100 million, exactly. But you know what? If we bought Matoma in, I would generally not mind playing Rashford on the right. At the moment, he doesn't even get in the team for me, but he's going to be a starter for that team for the future. Like, it is going to happen. But on the right, he creates more chances off the right. He crossed that ball in for Højlund against Galatasaray. He made that other chance for Bruno where he should have really shot. That didn't lead to anything, but he looked more threatening from the right-hand side. So I would not be against going by Matoma, I really wouldn't. But the only thing is Garnacho, like, you want him to grow. You want him to grow into that left wing spot. And that Garnacho is at, like, the left winger, and you would kind of stunt his development. So that's why I would probably go more for a right winger, to be honest with you. Someone who can play on the right. Leon says, Neto, if we don't get him, Liverpool or Arsenal will. He's perfect and Prem proven. I think Neto is honestly so talented, and he's got so much future ahead of him. How old's Neto? I'm going to have a little look here. I was talking about Neto years ago, honestly, when I was having football conversations with my dad at home, you know, when you're watching the Prem in the weekend. Love to do it. Neto's 23 years old. Again, how young. Seriously, he's literally like a year older than me. Like, it's crazy. And he's got so much future ahead of him. And I remember thinking how talented he's been for a while. The only thing about Neto is the injury concern. He does have them spells where he's out with injury. And that is what concerns me. Ayush says, please buy centre-backs. Chunk says, opinions, Beth. My daughter is 26, seen all the social media stuff and wants him back. Go figure. Wow. I mean, everyone's got different opinions. I assume you're talking about Greenwood there. All I would say is my own opinion based on what I've seen, heard, and, you know, taking everything into account is I wouldn't want Mason Greenwood back. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, is all I would say on that. You can't tell people how to think. And people talking about Chiesa. Chiesa is far too easy and vulnerable for football in the Premier League. Chiesa had obviously a brilliant Euros with Italy. And I do think he's a good player. He's someone who I wouldn't go for him. I'd stay clear. I'd go for someone, for me, that's just a little bit more exciting and has a higher ceiling, if I'm going to be honest with you. We need another CDM, not another winger. Well, that's a conversation that we can get into. I mean, look. I mean, here's one for you. Actually, no, I'm going off on a tangent. I want to go. I've planned out the show. We have Qatar, Sir Jim stuff. We have Sancho stuff. And then we move on to Man United's team going into, after the international break, injury update. So we'll finish off the Sancho subject there. Get in the comments who you would want as a replacement for Sancho. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. And we'll move on to the next segment of the show. So the next segment of the show is injury updates and what Man United's best 11 is when we come back from the international break. Going to be talking about the likes of Casemiro and Rashford. Going to be kind of including the fact that City look nowhere near it compared to what they did when they had Rodri, and how crucial a brilliant CDM is. Obviously, you guys saying we need centre-backs and CDMs over a winger. If someone said to me now, centre-back or a winger with the Sancho money, I'd say centre-back straight away. Of course I would. So there is kind of them arguments to be had there. But injury updates coming in from the MEM. Kobe Mainoo, Sergio Reguilon and Ahmad are all expected to be available for selection after the international break. Wow, I forgot about Ahmad. He's another right winger that we've got. So, see, if Ahmad can develop, he was looking decent in pre-season. He was brilliant for Sunderland last year. That'd be a great one to develop. Hopefully he can get more game time. So Ahmad is expected to be available after the break. It's been so long. Reguilon, we need him so badly. We're drastically missing a left back. Like, it's been ridiculous. And obviously Kobe Mainoo, what an incredible talent that we can bring back into the fold and hopefully get some good game time. But I saw someone tweet out, and it was so true. Someone said, you know, if Ten Hag loses against Brentford, is his job on the line? And it was actually an opposition fan. They tweeted out saying, for me, no. And I'm not just saying it because I'm an opposition fan. The fact that the only back four Ten Hag could field for that Brentford game with no defenders on the bench was Dalot, Maguire, Evans and Lindelof shows the injury crisis we are in. Like, that is not even a top 10 defence in the Premier League. It's not. And not to mention that these players have been playing every single minute because we've got nobody else. Lindelof's played for injury, ended up coming off. Dalot's played every second God sends over the last few weeks. You know, obviously Maguire and Evans have kind of been more like rotational players, but they've not really played football properly over the course of the season, apart from Evans had that Burnley game and Maguire's had what? That game against Palace. So the fact that, you know, Ten Hag has fielded that defence does give him a little bit of an excuse, I have to say. But bringing back players from injury, the importance of a good CDM, it is striking. And people disagree with me on this because I said it on Twitter and I had so many mixed reviews on this one. I love Casemiro. I think he's a great player, but he's not been at the races this season. Let's just be real with ourselves. He's scored some good goals, but as a CDM, he's not been at the races. He's been sloppy. He's gave the ball away way too much. He's give us no control in the middle of the park. He loses possession far too easily, and he doesn't track his runners. Ten Hag made the bold decision to take him off at half-time against Brentford, and I think it was the absolute right one. And when Amrabat and Eriksen played together in the midfield, and Amrabat was kind of dictating from the CDM role, we weren't great by any means of the imagination, but we looked so much more controlled, we looked more stable, we controlled the possession better. Brentford didn't get as many chances, they didn't counter-attack us as much. What Amrabat did is he kept it simple. He drove through the midfield, he laid it off to a red shirt, didn't make any wildly fancy passes because that's not his job, he can give it off to the players that can. But he kept the ball moving, he kept it ticking. I was really, really happy with him. He looks a little bit leggy, looks a little bit slow, but as that CDM, honestly, I think he did a really good job in the second half. And I think it's what Man United has been crying out for. They've been crying out for somebody that just controls the midfield and can keep possession. Like, it's very, very simple. Casemiro hasn't been doing that. He's been giving away the ball way too cheaply. We've been out of shape. He's not been able to track back, and we get counter-attacked, and our defence gets run through. It's not all Casemiro's fault. Absolutely not just blaming Casemiro. It's the whole team as a whole. But Casemiro has not been helping, so he made that decision. He said he wanted to see more football, and that's exactly what he got. Obviously, with Kobe Mainoo coming back in, he looked so good in pre-season. I'd say he's more of a box-to-box player, but I think Ten Hag was looking to play him maybe as more of the deep player in that role, maybe looking for a successor to Casemiro. Reguilón coming back is brilliant. So I want to talk about what team plays after the international break. And as I said, a good DM is so crucial. And Casemiro, it's not all on him because the whole team has been poor, but he has been letting us down in that department for a lot of this season. He scored some good goals and you can't take that away from him, but as a DM, we need so much more control. Not, you know, Rodri's just a different breed. But him being out that City team, they've looked so different. They've looked not as good at all. And they still look good because it's City, but they don't look as good. And I would argue they absolutely win the Arsenal game and they definitely win the Wolves game if they've got Rodri in the team. I think you can't say that because obviously you don't know because that never happened. But a good DM is crucial. But someone said, again, Matthias, he's been our top scorer. Everyone keeps saying, but Beth, he's been our top scorer. Casemiro, technically, when he's on it, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. I love the guy. But I'm allowed to say he's going for a bad spell of form. Casemiro being our biggest goal threat says more about the team being an issue, to be honest with you. But you can't take away the goals he scored. He's been great in that department. And that Palace game in the Cup, he was really, really good. But he's a CDM. Your job as a CDM, first and foremost, is to control and dictate the play from the back, control the midfield, track runners, and shield that defence. He has not done any of those things as a whole over the course of the season to a good standard. And that's why we look better when Amrabat came in my opinion. But, I want to talk about what our best 11 would be going after the international break. I want to talk about this, and we'll do this to finish off the show. Wow, I've been going for 50 minutes. I did not even realise that. I could talk to you guys all day. So I'll do it quickly on this one. But mine would be Onana in goal. A lot of you guys would want Bayern-Deering, but I'm going to stick with Onana. Wan-Bissaka still isn't back, so I'd have to go with Dalot right back. But if Wan-Bissaka was back, I'd debate putting Wan-Bissaka back in. But I'd go Onana, Dalot. Centre-backs. If Varane is back, I don't know if Lindelof's injured or not. honestly, if Varane is back, I think I'd go with Varane and Evans. And I can't believe I'm putting Evans in my starting lineup, but he was great against Burnley and he was great against Brentford. There's an argument for Maguire. There's honestly an argument for Maguire. Didn't put a foot wrong against Palace, didn't put a foot wrong against Brentford and got the assist for the winning goal. And these two players, I've said all summer, are not good enough for Man United. But there's arguments for most of them. Varane definitely gets in, but I think I would maybe go with Varane and Maguire, actually. Maguire or Evans, I would put them over Lindelof right now, because Lindelof's clearly nursing a back injury. He's played so many minutes. And Evans and Maguire, when they've played centre-back, have looked better. So I think one of them deserves a chance. Left-back, I would go with Reguilon. I think you have to. You just have to. Like, there's no if, buts or maybes. And I think Reguilon will improve this team so much. I really liked the stint he had in the team when he came in. I think he looked good, so I'd go with Reguilon. Then the three across the middle, I would go with Amrabat, Mount and Bruno. The uproar, because I've put Bruno in. Bruno is the captain, he stays. Mount, Erik ten Hag's signing, and I really do like him. I think to drop him would be unfair, and I think Amrabat can control that midfield as a DM. So that's the midfield three I would go with. I'm not bringing Mainu straight back in after he's just come back from injury, guys. I really like the guy, but he doesn't start straight after injury. You've got to work him back into the team. So that's the midfield three I'd go with. And then the front three I'd go with would be... this is tough. It would be Garnacho off the left, Højlund up front, and Antony off the right. That is what I would go with. I think the right wing position still up for grabs because I'm still not sold on Antony. But Ten Hag bought him for a reason, and he's a massive part to our system. He's the right winger. He should play. And I actually thought he made a really good impact when he came on against Brentford. Garnacho has to play. And I think Rashford has to be dropped. He's just not been good enough. I'm not saying indefinitely for the future, but Garnacho has to play. Again, played a really big part in us winning the game against Brentford. Looks bright every time he comes on. Højlund has just been a breath of fresh air, hasn't he? And Antony, I think, is the right winger, so he plays on the right wing. I'm not putting Mount on the right wing. He's a midfielder. Let's see. I would actually, by the way, on this one, because I know people are really going to be annoyed that I've done Bruno and Mount in the same midfield, but I would actually play Amrabat as the DM and I would play Bruno as an 8 and Mount as a 10. That's how I would do it, because Bruno had to drop back in the Brentford game in the second half, and Bruno hasn't been good for quite a while now, but Bruno looked so much more disciplined and controlled when he dropped deeper and had that responsibility of dropping deeper. And I just think we've seen a lot of good stuff out of Bruno when he drops deeper. We've seen it last season as well, and then occasions when he drops to the 8. So I would really like to see that work. But anyway, that's the team I would go with. Make sure you get your team in the comments. I really do think that everyone had kind of had a different perspective on that one. Roshi says, believe Bruno was an 8 at Sporting. Amrabat and Hannibal in midfield to work hard. Hannibal really unlucky to miss out, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's what I'd go with. I've been impressed by Mount. You can't drop Bruno. And yeah, that's the way I'd go with it. I can't believe I'm saying Evans or Maguire to start, but that's where we're at. But look, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Who would have thought? Start the international break and I could just keep talking to you guys, and I'm sure you're sick of me by now, so I will wrap up the show. But thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you hit a like on the video. Hopefully, this Qatar deal can actually happen. We are 100% takeover or nothing. We want the takeover, 100% or nothing, all or nothing. We are backing that. I'm backing that anyway. And hopefully it can happen before the end of next season and we go into the transfer window with no ownership, but I'm not holding my breath. Also with the Sancho situation, like I said, 60 million. Thank you very much. I take that and run. And yeah, thank you. Everyone getting your comments, all the discussion points. What team would you play? I mean, what players have to start? Would you take a season out of Europe for Ten Hag to implement the system? Let me know in the comments down below. Have a lovely rest of your Monday. So much content coming this week that we've got planned for you. Some really interesting stuff. Stay tuned and we'll see you on the next one, everyone.